Hey, I was talking to your buddy's brother today.
My buddy's brother.
I was talking to Matt Casey.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, he said it's very nice. He was glad to hear that his brother sent you that letter and everything.
Yeah, I
Very
mean
great.
it was very much a form letter or whatever, but it was still nice that because he has so many people, right? It's not like I'm not trying to downplay it, but it was nice to see that somebody getting in touch with them uh is treated the way it is. That you are at least being heard.
You're one.
I was, like I said, I was really impressed that I got anything at all.
I mean, you're one of millions of constituents in Pennsylvania, and I don't
Yeah.
know how many they get, but I'm sure they get a lot. And it was form in some ways, but in other ways, it was personalized. It was personalized to you directly, and it specifically talked about the concerns you raised about replacing Judge RBG, and
Mhm.
so I mean there was some personalization to it, but yeah, he can't sit down, I'm sure, and write personalized letters on every single one of them.
Oh God, no. And I mean, you'd have to be either arrogant or silly to think that they would. But it was nice that what was sent was recognized. I really appreciated that.
Absolutely, but they're a great family, and Matt's come into Newcastle several times, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, we worked on some cases together. Um, Fantastic lawyer, absolutely, just the bomb, great guy.
good,
Yeah.
very very good to see. Hey, speaking of things that were pretty good to see today,
Yeah,
freaking Lazio.
he decided to show up, huh?
Look at that.
Hmm. I guess it's a very good Dortmund team.
It is a good Dortmund team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good Dortmund team. Uh, it's obviously a good. Well, we
Frank.
for you and I anyhow, we know it's a good Lazio team.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we know it's Lazio's a good side.
they definitely have the talent. They just haven't decided to put it on the field yet in terms of like putting it all together this season. Um, but today looks like they're starting to turn that corner a little bit. We'll see how they play back in league again. Um, Serie A is shaping up to be very interesting because Juventus is a project this year. With
Hmm.
they clearly don't seem to have the same Juventus vibe that they've had before.
You know who the best side in the league is since the COVID-19?
This year, this
Yeah,
season,
since COVID. Well, since all the fun with COVID, I'll give you a hint. I'm sickened by it.
AC Milan.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they look really strong, and Donnarumma seems to, he's not
I
letting it.
the only match of theirs that I saw was obviously the Milan derby.
Yeah,
Uh, he played well, but I mean, he would have got a lot more of attention if Ibra didn't steal the show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
Shaka
yeah.
Hill
Great.
said that one non-call should have been a penalty, wherein Inter should have had a penalty shot, but they got screwed out of it.
Yeah. It's in there. There's there's things you just come to expect. Uh, Another thing you come to expect in Champions League apparently is Manchester United beating PSG again.
Hey,
I don't get it. I don't get it. They struggle against. Well, they lose to Crystal Palace
and let's face it,
at Old Trafford.
they struggled to put away NUFC this weekend.
Yep.
They did. It looks a lot better when you look at the final score line, but it was the 86th minute and it was 1-1.
Yeah.
And
Then the floodgates just opened at that point.
yeah, I mean once Newcastle gave up the 2-1 lead, it was like done. But I mean, granted, it wasn't. I like your text. Like I don't know which way to read this. Was it Man U playing bad or Newcastle playing exceptionally well? And I kind of tended to think that it was Newcastle playing really well, especially the way Saint Maximin was playing. Saint Maximin, when he plays like that, it's really hard because
Yeah.
not only do they build themselves on just shutting you down all game long, and then you've got to deal with a guy that's a legitimate threat with his left and right foot and can make moves like he was making in that game, and just like he makes your head spin. And
Well,
when you got that kind of player out there, it's like anytime he gets his foot on the ball, he could put one past you, and it's dangerous when he's playing like that.
well, you said he's a special player. I think it's exactly the word you used to, right? He's a special player. Yeah. Any PSG to me is kind of like Juventus, right? And Liverpool. Anytime they lose, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Real Madrid, but I mean, there's something special about Real Madrid and Liverpool losing, but it's always good whenever PSG loses. And this is the side that today on Sirius XM on the football show was predicted to win the Champions League this year, and they're at home in garbage. Well, I shouldn't say garbage, but a mediocre Manchester United side puts two past them. All right, it was Bruno. Bruno has a penalty shot in what extended time, or in the 80 something minute. I can't remember which one it was.
He continues to be torrid though. That guy is unreal. I mean, how about that shot he put in the top corner?
Right?
You knew I was rooting for the Magpies, and I was just like, "Whoa, that was beautiful." You can't.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Rashford that scored. Yeah. I mean, it was a great goal.
Mm-hmm. He had to be perfect. He had to be perfect on that shot,
and he was. He was. And then was that the same game where he missed his first penalty shot?
Well, he missed it, and Darlow.
Well, he was stopped. He really didn't miss it. Goaltender made a great read.
He made a great read, and he dove in the right direction. Got his he very strongly put his arm on it. And Darlow's been good. Darlow's been a nice substitute for Dubravka. Can't really complain with his performance. It wasn't his fault. After he got hurt a little bit, nicked up a little bit, what are you going to do? But he played well.
Yep. We have a few things going on today, Frank. A few things that really need to grab our attention. And I say that because these are things. One thing we predicted that we'll get to second, and one thing that we yelled about needed to be done first. I mean, but in order of how we're doing things.
Mm-hmm.
We have a debate Thursday. Well, we have a scheduled debate Thursday.
Right.
Let's leave it at that. We have a scheduled debate Thursday.
Yep.
And the debate commission is going to mute candidates during their opponents' initial responses to prevent interruptions. Frank, I'm a bit of a prick, and the initial responses part caught my attention. Okay, especially the initial part. Why was that even in there? Why wouldn't it be just during their opponent's responses? But that being said, basically what's going on, the muting will work like this. Obviously, everybody can see this is coming from CNN, right? At the start of each of the 6 segments of the debate, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer an initial question. During that portion, the opposing candidate's microphone will be muted. Both microphones will be unmuted after each candidate delivers their 2-minute answer. This is, I have a bit of a problem with this. But I'm first of all, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it. What are your initial thoughts, and what do you think about how they're doing the rules?
It's a that was good timing.
I'm sorry. It was I was running late. I forgot to turn the damn thing off.
I thought that's funny. I thought you had got some sound effects for us. That was pretty cool.
But, good, huh? Everybody, I meant that.
Yeah, there you go. I think it's a step in the right direction. It's the last debate. It's kind of funny that it's taken this long to get to this point. We screamed, and as you said, we screamed about this from day one. The simplest solution is to mute somebody's microphone so they can't talk over each other. It takes us to get to the third debate to get to this point, including the vice presidential candidate debate.
Mm-hmm.
Given that it's Trump, and they should know better that it's Trump, the intention that they have is bound to go off the rails, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to let the mics come back on, because clearly he has shown he has no restraint. And you would think that I get what their intent was. I really do. And I'm sure you do too. They want to have a little bit of free flow of conversation back and forth at certain times, but there's been no honor amongst the debaters when you get to that point. And there's been no real control exhibited by the moderator to stop that when it really goes off the rails. And that's what I fear, that it's going to go off the rails once you say we're going to click both microphones back on again. Could they, change in the fly? Maybe, no pun intended. But they could, they're always going to turn them off again on the next initial response. So I guess they could turn it off during a heated exchange if they felt like they needed to do so. But then they'd be going against their rules, which, sets them up for criticism. Regardless, Trump's going to criticize them regardless. And this is something I was saying earlier today. He's already started swinging at who the moderator is and saying she's biased, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'd do if I was her? I'd just come straight out and go right after him and say, you think I'm biased anyway. Let's just cut to the chase. I'm going to be biased against you, because just like if we were playing a sport right now and you start criticizing the referee from minute one, you think you're going to get any calls? You're not going to get any calls here. Live with it. Live with it.
I'm afraid I can't. I get it. I can't say I argue with you. I can't say I disagree with you. Probably not the best way to handle it, but yeah, I'm good for that.
Because you know what his intent is, right? He's trying to soften her up, and then she's going to want to seem fair by bending over backwards for him, right?
Right. Either that, or she was out to get me to begin with.
Right. Play the victim.
Play the victim. Well, he ran his candidacy on being the victim, right? I mean, he got himself impeached, and he was the victim.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. Again, my problem with that is the initial part. Okay. Yep. And I didn't read anywhere where it said that. And I do not believe it's the moderator who has any control over the muting. I really think that's somebody either offset, off camera, wherever the hell it is, right? That is not going to get a camera on them. It's not going to be a spotlight of anything, right? Which is the way it should be.
Right.
It's kind of like VAR for anybody who's follow soccer, right? It's you have somebody in there or instant replay. You have somebody in the replay booth. You have no idea who this person is. I just don't see why it's so hard to ask, like if there was, like if Lou was here today, right, and he asks you a question and he mutes me, right, and then he says, "Okay, Patsy, time for your response," and he mutes you and then turns me on, and that's just it, and it's just that way all the time. It's no initial anything. It's the entire thing that way. I don't see why that's so difficult, right? Give people the ability to hear the answer. And let them decide.
Yeah, I agree. I think that takes it out of the realm of, where do you draw the line? It really just defines it from jump. Yeah, I agree with you.
That being said, he's already he obviously meaning Trump is already like you said earlier, he's already calling it unfair. I'm really curious what can be unfair about letting you and your opponent have equal time answering questions. How is that in any way unfair? Frank, you ever going to look at a judge and say, "Wait a second, I want 5 more minutes"?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to appeal this case because I didn't have extra time beyond the other side. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I should have more time than the other side.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't seem. I don't think that's going to fly with the appeals court.
I mean, I'm sure you'd like that time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if the other side is going to give it to me, right? I'll just keep taking it.
Yeah,
And
honest to God, he
yeah,
might even try to. He might even try to. Try to get it. If, you're not going to push too hard, but you can. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't say the judge wasn't fair because we gave us both equal time.
right, right. And you know what? I it's a funny thing, and I don't want to go too far off the rails here, but it's a funny thing. A lot of times when you get that situation, it's like, oh boy, you know that you're probably losing because the judge is going to give you every inch of rope that you can have so that you can't argue anything at the end and say, well, I didn't get a chance to argue this or I didn't get a chance to argue that. The judge already knows they're probably ruling against you coming in after they've read your brief, and they're like, take as much time as you want. You're never going to convince me. So,
uh,
but yeah,
Go on. I'm sorry.
no, I just thinking, where we are in this situation, we've talked about, would you do another debate? Would you do another thing in front of the public? And we're really at the point now where most of the water has flowed under the bridge, right? I mean, is there anything really left to decide? Is there anybody sitting there waiting for this third debate and saying, I'm just waiting to see who performs best in this debate before I cast my ballot?
Yeah, we said it earlier, Frank, and I think our agreement was there's people who are saying they're undecided or one of two things. They are either number one, they just for whatever reason don't want to let anybody know who they're voting for, which way they're leaning.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, I do have respect for that.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't know their home life, you don't know their professional or work life. There's environments. I understand that. I truly do. But then I also think that there's also a number of people, and I'm not even saying it's 50-50 because, to be honest, I didn't give it that much thought, who just want their 15 minutes of fame. If they can get on CNN during a debate and say, hey, I'm an undecided, and they put camera on you, well,
yeah,
you're
the rare animal that's lives in this country that hasn't decided in the most divisive election ever that you haven't decided who you're going to vote for.
Right. Yeah. Like never in your history have you experienced two things that may have not been personal that are so both ends of the spectrum, and you're going to sit there and go, yeah, I just don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a conversation with I'll say my cousin up in the Bronx who's dear to me, very very close to me, but he's a MAGA, he's a Trumper, and he was telling me all this stuff about this just the nonsense that you hear from Fox News. And he was telling me how, this newspaper and that newspaper is biased and they're terrible and they've been caught lying with this story and that story. I said, and this person, that person, and coronavirus isn't as bad as they say it is. And I said, didn't Chris Christie just spend 7 days in the ICU? And he kind of chuckled. He said, yeah, this is Chris Christie. He said, but nobody around here. I said, that's New Jersey. You're in New York. That's as close, pretty much as close as you can get. Said,
that's about your house to my house.
Yeah. So that they should let these kids go back to school. And I said, we were just arguing a few minutes ago that you agree with me that the young people don't know how to act and that they're out there having parties and that they think that they're invincible. I said, what do you think schools are filled with? Young people who think they're invincible. I said, you got to protect everybody from that behavior because nobody can be trusted to act properly, unfortunately. So, we went round and round, and finally this thought came to me. He's talking about how everybody's out to get Trump. I said, listen, not everybody's out to get Trump. Trump made enemies with everybody. Trump made enemies with everybody in the world. And then he turns it on its head and says, everybody's out to get me. He walked into the position looking to pick a fight with every single establishment thing out there. He's the one that brought it on himself. And he paused for a second. I actually got him to stop talking for a second when I said that. And I was like, wait a minute, we're on to something, right? You actually are listening to what I'm saying here. So it could be an issue that maybe some MAGAs might get that isn't the world ganging up on Trump. Trump walked in the door and said, I'm going to punch everybody in the mouth. And that's why you liked him. But now that it's coming back on him because people are going to fight back, What are you whining and crying about? What do you expect people to do? Just lay down?
Hi, Lou.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Luke.
Uh, I don't know if you how if you need caught up or not. Um,
Yeah.
we started we started off talking about Champions League. Okay,
No, I know nothing
which is
about
soccer. Okay, so we know we're apparently we're getting you in, right? We're getting you in. It's just it's going to be a project.
that. Okay.
We don't want to throw too much at you because I'm afraid you're just going to sit there and honestly like Liverpool, and in which case Frank and I are just going to you'll kill us.
I'm going to go on Amazon and get a Liverpool shirt.
See, Frank, see. I mean,
Throw up. I'll throw
you
up
know,
on screen.
it's like this is what happens whenever you try to do things with good intentions. See, but then we switched gears and started talking about Thursday night's debate about how each of them are going to be muted. But we both have a problem with the idea of each candidate being muted for the initial 2 minutes, not the entirety of the other person's response. So even whenever you have a rebuttal to something, it doesn't appear that someone's going to be muted. And
do you think Trump's going to back out?
no.
Actually, I think Biden could use this debate just to let Trump shoot himself in the nuts again.
Well, you know what? That's a pretty good question. Frank, do you think I don't even think it's a matter of discipline. I think it's more a matter of somebody's character. I mean, can you imagine being in that position on that stage with those many eyes on you and just sitting back and letting this clown just go off without having I mean, you realize how hard that would be to do?
Yeah, it takes a lot of restraint. But it's almost like the exchange that went on over the Twitter sphere, which was, I think Trump said to a MAGA rally crowd, if you elect Biden, he's going to follow the scientists. He's going to believe in the scientists. And Biden just put on Twitter, yes.
Yep.
So, yeah, it could be that, Lou and Patsy. It could be that kind of thing where Biden could just sit back and play rope-a-dope and just let him show himself to be the fool that he is. At this point, Patsy and I were kind of just banting about the idea that is there anybody sitting at home saying, I really want to see this debate to make my determination as to who I'm voting for? And even if that's not the case, is there anybody who's willing to change their vote because of a debate performance, which is something we didn't cover before you came on? So that might be a good segue. Do you think that there could be a performance that's so bad that it maybe makes somebody change their vote after that debate?
You know what? I keep watching these polls, and to me, there's about 4% average undecided. The way they're falling out right now. Do you believe there's 4% undecided, and do you believe Pennsylvania is drawing in closer, like they're showing within the margin of error, 4%?
Two separate answers for that. Frank and I both said we don't believe that there's 4% undecided. We do, however, believe that there are 4% of people saying that they're undecided. Neither of us can really believe that there's actually that many people undecided. Do I believe Pennsylvania is getting closer? Yes. You know why? Because you're getting down to within 2 weeks, you have two candidates. You have 7 or 8 points difference. Well, those 7 and 8 got to start making their minds up and deciding who they're going to vote for. So yeah, by the natural progression of an election, things should tighten up a little bit. So yeah, I believe that they are. However, like I said, and I'm still going to hold on to that, the key number to watch is that 50% mark. That's nationally, and Frank, I'm kind of gonna go crazy here because I don't have a whole lot of faith in national polls. Okay, I think it helps as a barometer to help you gauge state polls, right? It's a tool, but I'm not a big fan of national polls unless you want to start throwing away Texas, California, and New York. There's big states that are headed one way. Then maybe you can look at a national poll. But the Democrats have such a stronghold in New York and California that your national poll's already skewed.
Yeah.
I think 2 million of the 3 million votes Hillary won by come out of California.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Right, and that's the
Yeah.
problem with electoral college because it makes after a certain threshold it makes points meaningless, or
Yeah.
votes meaningless.
Yeah, and my concern about Pennsylvania is I think that we're going to have two things. One, I'm wondering if there's a lot of people that have already voted. They voted by mail. How many of those folks are not being accounted for? Are they, they're not likely voters anymore. They're actually voters. So I don't know if they're being
Right.
included in likely voter polls. And secondly, I think that we've got a state that is, as we've talked about before, it's Pennsylvania or it's Alabama with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia on either side of it. If they're out trying to get the non-city response, if they're going to do a poll inside of Philadelphia and inside of Pittsburgh, it's not going to really skew well for Trump. But if they're taking 90% of their vote from every other county and 10% from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I don't know how they're setting them up, is what I'm just getting at.
Right.
I don't know if they're just, saying randomly, geographically, they're doing it that way, or if they're actually taking a measure of the population that's coming out of Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and skewing it that way. Because to me, as you've said before, Lou, you've got maybe one or two wards in the city of Philadelphia that's going to have more voters than all of Lawrence County. And then, you look at Potter County and places like that. I mean, Pittsburgh, one or two wards there is going to overtake that. So I don't really know how close it's going to be. I talked to a guy today. I'll reveal off the air who he was. Patsy knows who I was talking to earlier. But he said to me the difference between 2016 and today is that there was virtually no excitement around Hillary in 2016. And that there's much more excitement around Joe Biden than there was around Hillary. And as we've talked about before, there's much more frustration and anger to get rid of Trump. At that point last time, there was no we don't, we better make sure Trump doesn't get in. It was kind of like almost a joke at the time, and people didn't take it too seriously on the Democrat side. But now there's a very serious desire to get rid of this guy. So you got the excitement around Biden that wasn't around Hillary, the likability and the unlikability of Trump. And this person thinks that in Pennsylvania we're going to get a win, which he's very connected to Pennsylvania politics. I'll put it that way. So I'm hoping he's right.
Well, internal polling always shows you far more than what you're going to see on CNN or MSNBC. The not just the parties, but the campaign's internal polling are far more accurate than what you're getting out of Nate Silver. So
something else I saw too. They said the Republicans are bragging they have more registered voters than Democrats. They said the number you want to look at that they were trying to find out in Pennsylvania, because they felt this was the case. There was a number of people that registered to Republican from Democrat that have been voting Republican a long time and just never had it change because, parents or old mill workers or whatever, that's how it fell in place. My wife was a registered Republican till 4 years ago and never voted Republican hardly, unless it was Arlen Specter or John Hines, or maybe a supervisor out here we knew real well, like Paul.
Yeah.
You
Well, let's
know,
face it, everybody likes Paul, though. You know?
yeah, you know, but
Uh,
you wonder how many were actually new, or, you know, like they always said, well, it was a Reagan Democrat. Well, to me, if you're a Reagan Democrat, you're a Republican.
here's
And
my
they
problem.
also said young kids, very high percentage independent.
Yeah, that I believe. Frank, here's my problem with this quote unquote surge of Republican voters. What was your metric from which state to which state are you taking this data from?
Yeah.
Okay, and then take that same time span, whatever that is. Say it's 2 months. All right, I just made that up, but just say it's 2 months. What happened in the 2 months previous to that? Was everything stagnant, or was there an uptake of Democratic voters?
Right. Right.
No.
And that's the case that, you know, we don't have again, it's a snapshot without much context. And
Right.
yeah, without that context, it's hard to really read
I
into.
don't understand.
And you know that seems to be my biggest problem with this, Frank and Lou, because I've seen this thing that these you know these media places are putting out now about this big, and you know CNN went crazy about it yesterday. Of course, during that segment they had Van Jones on it, so take it for what it's worth. Uh, but they're going on and on and on about this uptick. They're not giving you what their graph is based on, the beginning and the end, and they're not telling you what happened before, because the only way you get a trend is to plot what happens before that, right? I mean, you have to do this over a large amount of time. You can't do. There's no trend if it happens over 2 months. Whenever you have a 2-year election cycle, it doesn't work that way. uh, I mean, you can't even short term invest in that amount of time. It's silly that they're able to pass this off, and that makes me question a lot of things, and it makes me wonder if do you think, both of you guys, do you think that just seeing that, do you think that and don't put any thought into it, just say, just they gave you this news that there's been an uptake in the Republicans over the last, or Republican registrations, let's say over the last month. Do you think that gives people incentive to do anything, or do you think people just kind of go, okay?
I know that the Republicans had quite a canvassing X drive going on, especially in the center rural counties of Pennsylvania in our state.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if they did that in other states between mails, and actually they supposedly did a lot of door to door, but that's because they don't care about COVID.
Yeah. Well, we knew they were doing a lot of door to door, Frank. They flat out told us they were doing that. That's how
Yeah.
they were going to do their campaign.
And remember how we ended our show on Friday? How many of those are going to vote?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other question. Just because you're registered or something, does that mean you're actually going to vote that way, or even vote at all?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, look, for many years, I don't believe that there's more registered Republicans in Pennsylvania. I think it's a far greater number of Democrats registered. But I think that we're going to have a close race, because there are a lot of Democrats in Lawrence County and other counties like Lawrence County that'll vote for Trump because he appeals to them. You know, he's not a Republican. He's an outsider, and people don't really care what is in front of his name. They care about that he's touted that he's patriotic, which is false, but they believe it. That he touts that he's pro-life, which is false, but they believe it, and that he touts that he's pro-gun, which maybe he is for his followers, but he's not really for every American. So those are the things that they eat up, and whether he's a Democrat or Republican, they just eat that right up, and they're going to vote for him. So the registration issue doesn't bother me so much. I still think it's just raw numbers in the places that have an understanding of science and have an understanding of the fact that this guy's a con man, which is basically people that are educated and have lived some life. So hopefully there's enough of those folks in Pennsylvania that it's going to carry the day.
Lou, I still want our state to be to not matter. What do
Yeah, I do too. I think they were Morning Joe, and I watched briefly this morning. They were talking about it's basically the way Trump is sitting right now. He has to have Pennsylvania because, in all likelihood, he will not flip. They fill Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota.
Well,
And they also mentioned, not counting like we've talked about, Arizona. Georgia's in striking distance, so is North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So if he gets Pennsylvania, yet North Carolina and Arizona swing the other way, he's still down. He's still done.
Doesn't really matter at that point.
No, it doesn't.
Florida, Frank. Florida's big.
It is big. And, we got to hope that it's big of enough number to not to survive the cheating that the governor is going to try to impose, right?
Well, you can't be cheating much more than Abbott is cheating in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, how the hell do you have one box in every precinct? It's not even every county, right? It's every precinct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
It absolutely kills me that these people can literally just get away with this stuff. I mean, something like that you would think would have some sort of check and balance. We seem to be able to do it on everything else, but we can't do it with something as fundamental as ballot boxes.
And I don't understand. I mean, it's happening down in Baltimore right now too. There's a zip code the zip code is 21224. It's the Canton neighborhood in Baltimore. It's mostly young people, and they've changed their voting to one or two big high schools, whereas everything was very much neighborhood oriented before. And they're saying they want bigger space so that they can social distance easier. It just doesn't make sense because if you have more voting locations, then you have less people at each voting location.
Or better yet, you make it even easier to to mail it in.
Yeah,
You got even less of a problem.
right.
One positive that came out of this whole thing here in our home state, the Supreme Court itself, the tie, gives Pennsylvania more time to tally the votes. I want to say this thing is saying 2 weeks, right?
3 days.
3 days. Oh, it's only 3 days.
Yeah, it's like if it's
Pennsylvania's high school to allow election. Yep, there he goes. Up to 3 days after election day.
If it's postmarked, by election day, you get 3 extra days. But I have a take on this, guys.
Go ahead.
I have a take on this. Happy for the result right now. Scared to death that you got a 4-4 tie. Why? Because, as we've talked about before, isn't this a local state issue? Isn't our state government the one that says we are going to count votes from our own state electorate in this manner? Okay? Why is the Supreme Court, why are there 4 Supreme Court justices, 4 United States Supreme Court justices who are willing to interfere in our state's elections? Why are they willing to do that? And in less than 2 weeks, we're going to have somebody named Amy Coney Barrett joining this court. So that gives you 5 justices who would side with that side. This case particularly is over, but do you think for a second that they won't bring another similar case from another state, or that they'll revisit something like this so that Amy Coney Barrett can weigh in on it?
Here, let me answer to you that real fast right now, because there's an article here I found. Non-decision is a victory for voting rights advocates. It's also an ominous warning sign for a court soon to seat a new conservative justice, Amy. Basically, what they're talking about is there is something Four justices, of course, Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, voted to prevent the implementation of this new rule and consider a radical argument that is coming before the court that could eviscerate the right to vote granted in 49 state constitutions. They're looking to override 49 state constitutions so they can put in their, you figure out, what's going to happen if you don't win this election.
Exactly.
Right, he can't wait to answer him.
No, here's the thing. People have to understand this. You have to understand this. That is so huge for this reason. I mean, I think you get it. Everybody gets it that's listening. But let me go further and explain. The United States Constitution is our baseline. Okay? We don't go lower than that Constitution. The Constitution protects everybody in the United States' rights. Then the states come in and say, everybody in our own state, we're going to bounce off of that and give you even more rights based upon what we care about in our home state. Right? So when you look at your state and you say, we have local control of our constituents, we know what we need in Pennsylvania, we know what we need in the state of Washington, we know what we need in the state of Wyoming. Don't let the United States Constitution, we're not going to go lower than that, we're going to go higher than that. But instead, the federal government wants to come in and interfere with the state constitution. That's mind-blowing. It's really like the Republicans have always said, we don't want this big government interfering, we want local control. And here they are messing with local control on one of the most seminal issues that there are, state constitutions. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
And yet, looks like that's what they're willing to do.
Yeah, this ruling would take away the power of state courts to interpret what is their own state constitutions. And anybody out there listening, if you haven't noticed by now, it's all about states' rights unless it leans liberal and they give everybody a chance to vote and equal rights as far as marriage and everything else.
Yeah, then we can't tolerate that.
Then it's no good. Then state rights are no good.
Do you
I truly believe that what they've done the last 30 years focusing on all these courts it's just their long game. My God, I looking at some of the judges they put in, I could have gone to the Polynesian. What was the one on Better Call Saul? Where was his law degree from? Polynesian University or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
My God, I'd make a better judge than half of them idiots.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. This is the problem we have whenever we mix law and politics. Big problem.
And religion.
Well, anything that has to do with the state, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that. I mean that as a nation. That religion should be outlawed. I'm sorry, it should be. And this is coming, from a Catholic, but can't have it. Can't do it. And if you don't believe me, and you're older and you've always practiced whatever religion you've practiced, look at how your views, your opinions, and your grasp of your religion has changed over the course of your lifetime. And tell me how that's a good thing to have that dynamic is a positive thing to have in a government. Right? You can't. One thing I will be positive of. How's that one, Frank? Huh?
Very good.
Trump's kind of shitting on Fauci right now. Good move, bad move? Do you think at this point it really matters? What do you think? Here you go. First of all, I don't know if anybody's noticed how pissed off CNN has gotten at Trump over the last, I want to say, maybe 3 months. But they're downright angry with him now. At least, some of their on-air talent is. During a fundraiser thing, Trump ridiculed Fauci as a disaster and an idiot who's been around for 500 years. Tell me if I'm wrong. There's no way in hell Fauci is older than he is there? I mean, even if he is, and Fauci's been around for 500 years, this clown's been around 450, right? One of the best lines I've heard in a long time. What Donald Trump is doing is attacking the fire department when the house is burning down. Do you think it's going to matter? Do you think this would? First of all, I think this was inevitable. All right, that's what I'll say. I thought this was inevitable because Fauci was not kissing his ass, right? Fauci was playing it cool and not really getting into the weeds with him, but he wasn't kissing his ass. And I think Trump's patience ran out because he has somebody who, number one, is getting more airtime than he is, and nothing bothers him more than that. Notice he didn't say a damn thing about those town hall debates and who had the better viewership. Didn't say a word about it. That may be the only time in the history of this asshole's presidency that he didn't mention the Nielsen ratings, right? It's got to be the only time. That's number one. And number two, as he said, people are tired of hearing about the coronavirus. Well, you asshole, we're tired of hearing about it because you never did anything to help us get over it.
Right.
What do you think? Does he finally throw this guy under the bus and gets rid of him in the next 2 weeks or not? Or do you think that somebody has his ear, like maybe his daughter has his ear and says, Dad, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that? What do you think, Lou?
Well, I would say if he got rid of Fauci, maybe that just firms it up a little more for Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And something else you got to think about, if this ass clown would win again with a conservative court, I'm being devil's advocate, talking about ruining states' rights. Could these idiots come in and say, Wolf, DeWine, Hogan, Cuomo, guess what? We're invalidating your edict of 25% in restaurants, shutting things down, masks, and every other thing you put the executive order through for safety.
Frank, you think there's any way we can smuggle ourselves into Italy?
Oh, there's a way. There's a way. And yeah.
I mean, think about it. Could he? I mean, the way. They want a dictatorship, and there's still got a lot of blue states out there that,
they can almost get away with whatever they want to get away with. The ultimate test is going to be this election, because if the people do not stand for it, then it'll end. But there are a lot of people who are afraid. We've gone over it from the standpoint of the Cleveland Clinic that bowed down to him and let him come into a debate without doing the testing that was required. We could have found out definitively that night if he really did have COVID or not. But they let him pass, and that's what somebody who's afraid of standing up to authority or what, because and it goes further than that. It goes all across the board. There's these companies that are afraid of the Trump tweet affecting their bottom line. Exxon, I guess, the other day didn't feel it. They said, we're going to tell you this never happened, whenever he talked about, even though, his quote may have been, I'm going to give credit, his quote may have been taken out of context about, calling Exxon and asking for $35 million. Mm-hmm. But Exxon was like, we're not going to have any question about this. That conversation never happened. Okay. And, that's one of the few companies that was willing to stand up to him. No surprise, it's big oil. But, we have to have people who are willing to stand up to authoritarian people. And if this election goes Trump's way, I see it becoming less and less likely. So that your question you posited, Lou, yeah, because who's going to stand up to it? Who's going to stand up to it if they come in and say, we're overriding your edict in the state?
Well, at that point, you can't. The precedent has been set. You're just putting it off now.
Yeah. People could, if they really wanted to, go out in the streets and say, we're not leaving. You do something about it. See it. Let's see you in the street.
And they'll target the Frank and Patsy podcast because they're criticizing dear leader.
Yeah.
Lou, I just want to let you know that it's the Frank and Patsy podcast with Lou. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to make sure you see the who's actually everybody on the marquee here.
Oh, then I'm going to jail too.
Yeah. Well, we know people there.
Mel spent a lot of time in jail. He ended up being a pretty big hero, didn't he?
Yeah. He got into good trouble.
Yeah.
Maybe to wrap this all together and put a nice big red GOP bow on it. The one thing, remember, Frank, how I said, the second thing was going to happen, and it pretty much became the last thing here now. But remember how we said the Republican senators are going to start distancing themselves if it's looking like things are starting to go south for them?
Yep. Cornyn on
I
the
guess
left.
my biggest question to these clowns is, where you been?
Yeah.
What have you been paying attention to? For 4 years, Republican senators have shrugged off Trump's consistent string of controversies and scandals. Yada, 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 yada. But 2 weeks until Election Day, senators are starting to say, holy shit, basically. I mean, trust me when I told you, I just paraphrased that. Publicly and privately, Republicans are now beginning to distance themselves from the president. And at the debate over the post-Trump Republican Party is already starting to take shape. I guess my biggest question, and the most obvious one for both of you guys, does it matter? At this point, does it matter? Do you think that anybody who is in trouble of losing their seat is losing it or is going to lose it because of their tie to Trump? And since it's so late, breaking that tie, do you think it matters? Or the ones who are losing their seat that weren't tied to Trump, or do you think that it again, do you think it matters? Frank?
Yeah, I think there may be a couple that think they can salvage their seat. I think the other ones are actually looking at a different kind of game. I think the other ones are looking at, how do I cozy up to what could be a very, very difficult next 2 to 4 years of being out of the majority, with a president that's a Democrat, a Senate that's Democrat controlled, and a House that's Democrat controlled. How do I get any legislation done that helps my state, my constituents, if I've burned those bridges? So I think they're looking at it saying, hey, don't forget about me. I'm a reasonable guy or gal over here. Here's how I'm going to prove to you I'm reasonable. I told them just 2 weeks before the election, this guy's a moron. So listen to me. And when you're in power and you want to get a deal done, I'm the guy, I'm the gal. Come to me and we'll work together. Because you can see I'm reasonable. I think that's more the case for somebody like Cornyn. I don't know about all of them, but I think that's probably the case there. They're risking something by doing it because Trump, as we know, is he's willing to hold a grudge. So if he somehow pulls this out, some of those folks are going to pay a price with him. But I think they must feel pretty confident that they are reading the tea leaves, that they need to cozy up to the Democrats right now.
Lou, we had said earlier that internal polling is always more accurate than external. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they may know something there. You know what? Let them put their vote where their mouth is and vote against Barrett to cozy up. They really think it's going down. That would prove something to me.
That's where I start to wonder just how much of this I don't even want to say this article, but this story that's making its rounds actually has any bearing to it, right? Because that's when you're going to find out.
Yeah.
Right. And so far, no one's given any indication that this is not a done deal.
Yeah, you think about it, 20 years ago, probably even 10 years, well, not 10 because Obama was there, 20, 15, 20 years ago. Do you really think Barrett would have got past the Senate hearings, even with a Republican majority?
Never would have made it to the Senate hearing.
She wouldn't have got past the Judiciary Committee.
Mm-mm.
I mean, could you imagine McCain and Arlen Specter looking at her qualifications saying, ain't no fucking way?
Oh, don't forget at that time you'd had Miss Lindsay saying no fucking way too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because well, you know.
Yeah,
Frank?
it's a different world these days. It's blatantly court packing. It's funny how the projection goes right down the line. It all started with Trump with projection. It goes to Mitch McConnell, it goes to the Republican Party, it goes to the pundits these days. They want to project talking about the Democrats wanting to pack the court in this hypothetical situation that they're going to add, Supreme Court seats. In reality, there's been 100+ federal lifetime appointments made with judges who are not qualified. That's packing the court. So, do you think that Amy Coney Barrett would have been? No, I don't. I think that she would have been. She would have been. There would have been so many other qualified candidates that would have been looked at first. And even if you wanted somebody who was conservative in nature, there would have been a much more qualified candidate than her. So she's just clearly look. I'm going to go back to the thing we were talking about a few minutes ago. People are stunned at this point that Gorsuch joined those 4 people to vote against Pennsylvania expanding those 3 days. Okay, because people actually believe Gorsuch was a principled person. He's clearly a lapdog. Okay, he's a lapdog, and that's what Trump wants in Coney Barrett. He wants a lapdog. That's all she is. She has no gravamen as a judge. So it's a joke, literally a joke. She is not a Supreme Court justice. She's not Supreme Court justice worthy. She would have never gotten a look. Never.
Now, the difference being, I think, is because they wouldn't have been able to look at her.
Yeah.
Right? You knew it died as soon as you brought her name up. That'd have been no. Now she's being treated with the same seriousness as Roberts or Kennedy.
Yep.
Right? Or Sotomayor, for that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely terrible. Just to wrap this up, I saw this earlier, Frank, and I thought of you as soon as I saw it. And I literally saw it, I thought of you, and I shook my head and I said, what a strange world we live in. This is coming from USA Today. Okay, this is why I thought of you, Frank.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go.
Wow. Surprise.
I'm trying to see where it says here, but basically, here it is, right here. For nearly 4 decades, the editorial board has yada 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 yada. I cannot remember, and I'll be honest, I didn't do a whole lot of research into it. I didn't push it very hard. However, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this very well could be the first time the USA Today has endorsed a Democrat for president. Do you think the USA Today? Because don't forget, Lou, I might let you in on a little secret here. Well, probably not, but whenever Frank and I were old enough to be in high school, USA Today, that was it. That was the big newspaper, right? I mean, USA Today was like, it was like they were like rock stars. We had a couple of friends who every day I can remember. Frank, I can remember Andrew. Every day on the way to school, buying the USA Today. Right?
Yeah.
And these were high school kids, right? These are 16, 17, 18-year-olds. You think USA Today has that same kind of clout, or that do you think, maybe not classified, maybe not a good word, but do you think that that it's a big endorsement, or do you think it's just that these things really don't matter anymore? Yeah, Frank, I'll start with you since we had a commonality there.
Yeah, I'd like it to matter. I mean, I think that anytime you've got a news publication saying that their board, has examined the situation and say they're going to put their name to this, their reputation, their organization on it, I'd like it to matter. I'm not so sure it matters a whole lot. I do remember what you're talking about because it was like this big color newspaper that covered everything, and it gave you a different perspective on sports than maybe we got locally. It gave us a different perspective on stories than we got locally. So it was a lot of fun, as we were growing into young men at the time to kind of take a look at that. I wish it did mean something. My gut feeling is it might not mean too much. Maybe a few votes.
Lou, what do you think? You think it holds a whole lot of weight, or do you think it's just?
I don't think it holds the weight it would have 10 years ago. But when you're thinking about the publications that have endorsed Biden that have never given endorsements in 100 years, tells you what people are observing.
Yeah.
What was it? The American Medical Journal, Scientific America. Newspapers that haven't endorsed a Democrat since FDR or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just caught something here too. I was just laughing, but apparently Trump walked out of an interview with 60 Minutes after 45 minutes with Leslie Stahl today.
No way.
And he's already tweeted 4 minutes ago, pleased to inform you that for the sake of accuracy in reporting, I'm considering posting my interview with Leslie Stahl prior to airtime. This will be done so everybody can get a glimpse of what a fake and biased interview is all about.
Sounds good.
Yeah, who's the moderator Thursday night? This is why I brought that up. It's a woman, isn't it?
It's a woman.
They should have. I can't think of who it is. They should have put you Michelle Sindor with her, though.
That would have been great.
Yeah. I still think Maddow should have been involved in that somehow. But
Welker. Her last
I'm
name's
biased.
Kristen Welker.
Welker.
He must. Well, you talk about that internal polling. The way he's flying off the handle, do you think he's been reading it now?
Can't be good, huh? Can't be good. Kasich is being vetted by Biden for a cabinet post, according to Politico.
What do you
I'll
think?
be honest. I always like Kasich, and it doesn't really buck a system because if you remember, Obama had quite a few Republicans in his cabinet.
Yeah.
I could see him targeting Huntsman for, I'm trying to remember the post. What would be the one that takes care of, like the farms and stuff? Maybe try and straighten that back out.
Department of Agriculture?
Yeah, or something, something on that. I could see that happening. Kasich would get stuff done.
Yeah.
It's a Department of Interior, which he might be good for also, Huntsman. So
he seems to be one of those voices that kind of goes along with Biden's message of being able to reach across the aisle, because I think Kasich could grab a couple of votes from both sides.
Yeah, I think when you're trying to lobby things and try to work with Congress and you're trying to send a message, you're trying to fashion a message to the people. When you've got that voice in your own administration that is going to be taking into account, somebody that's got a conservative viewpoint, I think it helps. And I think to maybe quell the fears of our progressive and liberal folks that are in our party, don't think that it's going to outweigh the progressive ideas.
No,
I think it's only going to help. It's only going to help support those in the long run because you're going to have more support across the board.
Don't forget, Kasich was a proponent of expanding Medicare in Ohio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a backer, believe it or not, of strong labor.
Yeah. Yeah. He always, there wasn't a whole lot I tended to agree with him but I always thought he was rather reasonable. Uh, we just had fundamental differences about things, it seemed like. But I think he would actually be a pretty good pick. Again, depending on the cabinet post, like Frank said. But yeah, he'd definitely be he'd definitely be a positive. Trump walks out on the interview a little early, huh? Well, don't forget, guys, what Stormy Daniels tell us. Trump finishes early. Okay, there you go.
There's a good way to end right there.
Huh?
That's a good finish.
There we go. Yep.
The one Stormy didn't get.
There we go. At least I could say I contributed to I feel bad I stole something off of Lou, but that's okay. Guys, anything you want to say before we wrap this puppy up and give it the death it deserves?
Can't top that. Can't top it. I'm gonna leave it there.
I thought that was pretty good. I'll be honest, guys. I'm kind of proud. I am.
Should be.
Every now and then, Frank. Can't do it all the time. I can't say I'm getting into the Hall of Fame, but every now and then I can get that runner in.
Listen,
Guys,
you're gonna hit the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We will be back to Lou. Are you golfing tomorrow?
I don't really know. I'm kind of doubting it, but stuff's starting to move here. I'll see how tied up I am. Because I'm getting the floor laid upstairs on Thursday, so if I got stuff to do, I may have to bail.
Well, folks, you're at least going to get two of us tomorrow. So until tomorrow.
Jump in late.
No, let's see how it goes. Till tomorrow, same bad time, same bad channel. Until then, everybody, thank you, goodbye, and God bless. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Bye-bye.